6 p.m. on Tuesday, April 8th, and I will call the meeting of the City of Stoughton Finance Committee to order. I don't think we need to have a roll call since I can literally see everyone, and Tanya's not going to be here. I can certify that we are in compliance with open meetings law. Does not appear that, well, wait a minute. Public comment? This is new.
She's in communication and presentation.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Then, well,
Either way.
then let's roll into communications and presentations. Yeah, you do need to turn it on.
That's it? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Hello, my name is Sarah Ebert. I'm the president at the Stoughton Chamber. And I have been in talks with the mayor, and we have a committee at the chamber about relocation and where we're going to go. This was something actually that our board was going to take a look at before the SMET proposal came through about is our location the best location, though beautiful, quaint, and very appreciative that they could be there for the last 25 years. I just want to put that out. But as we grow and change, is that the best location to be the visitor center? And also, do we have enough things there to offer our businesses? And so we were going to just dive into it this year, taking a look at what does that look like, what maybe if we needed something different, and how would we fund that. So with this coming upon us quicker than we thought, we haven't gotten any of those pieces in place. I did do some, we had a committee to do some research about availability of buildings downtown. It's important that we're centrally located. And the ones that I spoke with, typical rent would be like $1,000 a month, which we do not have now. So what I'm asking the city is, it was suggested I came and talked to you guys first, kind of lay it out. This is two pieces of information. I'm asking the city if we can come and hang out with them in City Hall for a couple of years so we can put some of the plans that we were planning in place and doing some research and then actually implementing some of that to raise additional funds rather than, I mean, our membership dues are not going to cut it, and our events are not going to cut it to do a new building, and who all knows what's going to be happening. So many cool things are going to be happening back down where we're at to see if there's what it is. So I'm really open to anything. Was talking with the mayor, he pulled up the lease and gave it to the city attorney. It was basically the same lease that the city has with the bank there. And so made some adjustments. Danielle Thompson is our co-chair on the, I feel so bad I'm not looking at you, is our co-chair on the, for the board, and she looked through it. So I have some red line items that we are just going to insert in, and I can do a quick review of that. I reviewed it with the mayor today. There was nothing that was huge or outstanding. But before we get into that, I just want to say a couple of things about, I did some research. I'm part of a group of chambers that I can throw out emails to chambers all in Wisconsin to see what they do. There's quite a few chambers that are either in City Hall or also in city municipality buildings. And they pay no rent or $1 a year or month, something very minimal. There are chambers that aren't in it, and the ones that aren't in it say don't go into a city building. The ones that are in a city building, they really haven't had any problems. And then there's just a handful of people that have their own actual buildings. So this first little write-up are all, and I don't need to read through it, but just highlight, you know, we are the visitor center. It would be a natural place for somebody in a transition. If we were to move, they would go to City Hall to know about what's with Stoughton. So that sort of meets the need. There is some space when you walk into the tellers that our visitor service or our tourism coordinator could sit and be a welcome center and give information. Also then, what was I going to say? we could have our information out there, not proposing to come in and do anything crazy. Of course, it would be with a discussion with, you know, the employees that are out there. But I'd ask, some of the proposal would be that I have a visitor coordinator that I said she is part-time. She works 25 hours a week. I have a full-time events coordinator, works Monday through Friday. And then I work Tuesday through Friday. The chamber's current hours are 9 till 4:30. They can very well be adjusted to be done at 4, as City Hall is. So I'm not asking for additional time for City Hall to be open. I am asking, though, to have a key, because I don't work from 9 till 4, and I don't work just Monday through Friday. So if I have to run in and out, or even Clove, who is the events coordinator, needs to run in and out, that we have that availability, but we would not have it then open to the public. That was also a concern. So like I said, it seems like a natural place for people to come. We can, and I talked actually with Candy today about, you know, we have city employees up there at the teller, and then we would have a visitor person and maybe even Clove as well up there, that even though the messaging would be very clear that we are not the same entity, that the chamber is separate from the city. And, you know, people don't really, they think we're all part together, and we haven't really come into any issues with that. But if there was issues right off the bat, we're going to have some clear messaging about that. But my employee is not being hired to do city work, and the city employees up there are not hired to do chamber work. So, you know, the cursory, you go to the first level to try to help somebody out, and if you can't, then you can direct them to who they need to talk to. So these are all things we'll talk through, but just sort of common sense things that we are thinking about. So we still keep we can all help each other, and direct them in the right spot, but we wouldn't be the city wouldn't be in charge of telling people what to do for the day or what are the events. That would be with me, and I would be one of the possible offices, just a couple offices down from where the mayor is, so that I would be up there. I told you about what I found with other chambers. I think that there's adequate space for us to go there. Very flexible too, I have to say, you know, because I know there's some plans and things that the city may want to do with the city hall, but I told the mayor, like, if you're going to think or maybe do this in a year or two, well, let's just get me in a year. As that happens, then we can rearrange. I don't want everybody to get too focused on, well, this could be used for this space, but we're not ready and we haven't voted on it. We're nimble enough, and we have not a lot of stuff or items. You know, again, we were down the depot, 3 of us in that one room. So I'm more than flexible to work with that. My goal would be, and the reason why we're pushing this through quite quickly, is that I want to come to you tonight. I know next city council meeting isn't your typical city council meeting, but I might just show up to give a little plug because I'm gone the following one. And then your next one in May is the week of St. Nemai, and I will come if need be, but if I didn't have to be here that week, that would be really nice. Once St. Nemai is done, totally open to moving in June. Then we will be out of that building earlier. So if you need to, and I know the Historical Society is too, looking for like around the 1st of July. So if we both can be out of there, then that will be a little more flexible for the city to work with Smet Foundation if need be. Yeah, you guys are already paying for us, like I said, very graciously at the depot. You will not have that cost anymore. The things that in the lease, just to highlight, again, I don't know how much time I have, so I don't really want to ramble on and on. They're redlined and underlined. The really big, like, overall highlights is that I would ask to have some storage space in the lower level that could be locked. We have some outside equipment that the mayor had taken a look at, and you have that shed right outside. That would be room enough for stuff that we have. We already are storing stuff out at the barn at Racetrack. Some of the other things I am going to ask, and what we changed that was in the lease, that because this happened so quickly for us, that you give us 2 years to the end of December 31st of 2027, because this is halfway through this year, that you give us 2 years, and I am going to ask that you don't charge us rent. If it turns out to be that this is working out really well and we'd like to stay there, then the idea of paying rent after that would be fine, but I wasn't set up to pay rent now, so I'm not really just not set up to pay rent right now. So we put in there like $200 a month after that, if we decide to on both parts, if that were to work out. I will continue to carry the insurance I need. I did submit those plans already to this AJ. The mayor talked to me about carrying over our phone and our phone service. I have no problem with that. We have TDS. That might help. I haven't had a chance to talk to them, but that might help the whole logistics of us keeping our phone number and phones or whatever. I can work that out with that. I have no problems with that. There's a few things that we stuck into the lease just so we wouldn't have to rewrite it, but we will pay for, we're going to need some signage outside if it would fit in the area where the city hall sign is, obviously, so people in the street can know that's the chamber and the visitor center. I would also like, as you walk up to the doors, on the glass doors, that we could have some kind of vinyl print on there. I looked at them today. It doesn't even say, it says City Hall on the outside, but there's nothing on those windows, so maybe that would be something that would be appropriate, that we'd have city information and chamber information. And then to designate where the visitor center is. So like if I had some kind of signage to tell you the truth, I'm not exactly what I don't know exactly what I want, because we're not in that space, but to be able to have the flexibility of maybe having some brochure racks or some signage, or maybe even a smaller media screen. If that works out, of course, we would pay for all of that. I don't have a lot of meetings. And if I do have meetings, they're smaller meetings. I would say 10 or under. They're like committee meetings. City Hall has a beautiful conference room downstairs that I would love to take advantage of. I know it's not handicap accessible, but for the people that we have, that shouldn't be an issue at all. To have those type of meetings. I don't have events that would need to come into City Hall for any reason. I do, though, would like to have this for discussion, that I don't think it would be taken, I don't know how much people would utilize it, but that downstairs area is so nice. And if we could offer to chamber members, if they're looking for a place that they may need to have a meeting and don't have a space that's big enough. It's just, I don't know enough about the building or how much it's utilized, but that is one thing in my vision. If we were to have a different chamber area, that's something I would like to offer our businesses. You're going to have a meeting, a one-time meeting or something like that, and you need a bigger space because you can't do it at your, at your place. I have a space that you can use. So I'm not going to die in that hill, but if it's just down there and nobody's using it, that would be something nice. Other things that we talked about, I said that I would, common areas they laid out, that would be fine. If I needed to have a room or use a conference room upstairs, of course, that would be planned out way ahead of time, and to make sure that wasn't already reserved. That all just makes sense. A few things that were just, I think, oversights, like the city is like if the HVAC, something happens to it above my office, it's not going to be my responsibility to fix that. That would be the city's stuff. So there's some of that wordage that was changed around in here. If something particularly gets broken or damaged because of me or somebody that comes to use the chamber, then of course, then that's written in here. That would be under our liability, but just some random stuff. would still be with City Hall. Like I'm proposing, talked about the signage. That's pretty much it. So I just wanted to show you what was originally presented to us, and then we went back in and just either clarified, cleaned up a little bit, or just be proactive so we wouldn't have to go back and rewrite the lease after we got there. I was trying to cover our basis. That was a lot of information. And that, I would say, if you found that helpful, these two things, I could present this and give it to Candy to put in the city council packet. I'm open to making some adjustments. She does need this to, if I'm going to give her anything for the next city council meeting, she does need it by noon tomorrow. So I guess I'm just opening this up for any questions, thoughts, direction. How should I do this?
I thought I'd get away from talking about tellers after hours, but nope. I work at UW Credit Union.
Oh.
I have a quick question. I know, Greg, looks like you have a question. And I'm coming at this from the perspective of a credit unioner. Any concerns from the city's perspective or the bank's perspective of having a key given to a third party and potential after-hours access?
We haven't really talked that through internally. We use fobs, so it wouldn't be an actual key, it'd be a fob, so it would be programmed specifically for one door. So we can program them fobs for different doors in different buildings, so it would be just exclusive to that front door, basically.
Greg?
Can't hear you.
Could you explain Exhibit B to me? I mean, I'm assuming this is the layout of what you were planning to use, you know, the spaces you're planning to use?
Absolutely.
I can explain that.
Yeah, because the city did that, not me. So I can let the mayor do it.
So the city attorney kind of took the first whack at customizing this agreement for the chamber. And one of the things that Attorney Matthew requested was a map of the space. And if you see the numbers, those are the offices. And then, so you have 1, 2, and 3 of the offices. 4 is the conference room that's upstairs. And then 5 is the restroom that they would be doing. And then if we were to let them have access to the conference room downstairs, we would add that on there. So he just wanted to understand what areas the chamber would be utilizing and the square footage of those areas. So where it says 1 and then 9 by 11, that's office 1, and 9 by 11 is the dimensions, 9 feet by 11 feet.
3, okay. So 1 is obviously the office for you, and 2 and 3 would be for your personnel,
Right.
you 2 people.
They currently have them in the teller area. So the TV is right in the middle, and then the 2 very far ends are current city employees, and then the 2 inside ones. I spoke very briefly to Candy about this, and it's going to really affect her and her staff. So I want to talk that through with her and work through what works best with them. I'm not going to come in with a whole bunch of stuff and say, move over here, I'm here. I mean, she knows how that works well. She knows how her staff works, and it's, you know, yeah, it has to be a good working relationship. So this is what they proposed. I for sure need Amanda in the front. I for sure would like to have an office. Clove is more flexible, but I don't want her to be in the basement because the public does come and talk to her quite often as well.
My concern with this, well, obviously there's the concern of having a private entity in with the public entity, and at least for me, and to have it like this, to have somebody right here, right next to the city employees, there could very well be some confusion from people coming in and thinking that that the chamber has become part of the city, or like a lot of people think it is part of the city.
Yeah, I think
So
one of the ways,
I think this is something that we have to work out. I mean, like the bank has its own special area. It's off to the side. I just have a feeling that there should be more. It should be more defined.
I think there's a couple things. The TV is in the middle, and the reason we're not using that space is that's kind of where I call it the rotunda, the dome.
Yeah.
And it's an echo chamber in there. So it's a good place for the TV because otherwise, if you have a conversation there, you can practically hear it outside. So that's why we position them on either side of the TV, and those are the higher desks. The city employees like the end desks because they're lower, and we don't want to disrupt the city employees. And I think that one of the ways that Sarah has suggested we address that issue is with signage in front of the desks. So it'll be clear when people walk in the door which desks are the city employees and which ones are the chamber employees.
Greg, I would agree with
I
you.
could-
I'm not disagreeing with you. Clove,
No, I know.
No.
It's just from the perspective of somebody
Mhm.
coming in and sitting there looking at it. It would look like everything is just melded together rather than whatever. And it's purely optics is what I'm talking about.
and that's what I was talking about too. It would have to be very clear. I think it's a huge benefit to have Amanda be there as a visitor greeter. She is amazing at it. For any reason, if any of the other two aren't there or have to jet, hopefully that desk will be covered if there's going to be 3 people there at some point or whatever, and can direct them if they need it. This is what they proposed. I'm not crazy about Clove sitting up there. Clove wouldn't be facing out as people came in. If she sat up there, it would be more a little bit blocked. Because she does not need to be a welcome greeter. She would not need to be somebody that would have to talk to. I wouldn't have her there, but I'm asking to come, so we'll go where they put us, except I don't want to be in the basement.
Right.
And the other thing too is we may have people coming in to do city business and they go to you.
Right.
So I mean, it's something that all has to be worked out.
And they'll find a way. The other thing we are investigating right now is to have more security in the building.
Yeah.
So like a buzz-in system and with an intercom similar to what you see in other municipal buildings or at the school district. So then when somebody comes into vestibule, they would push the intercom and then a person at the front desk would ask them who they're there to see, and then that person could go right up to the door and greet them as they come in. So we're looking at making improvements in the building such as that, and then we're also investigating the possibility of someday putting an elevator in there. The basement is underutilized right now. It's mostly storage, as Sarah mentioned. There's a nice room down there. I know Candy would love to be able to set up that room and have her voting machines in City Hall downstairs and do all the training in one building. Right now she has things in basically 3 different buildings, and it's not very efficient. So there's some improvements that we're going to look to do. Some of them will probably be in the CIP, like the elevator, depending on what it would cost to put in the intercom system. Potentially with the approval of the council, we may be able to use some of the proceeds from the sales of the depot to make those upgrades.
My thought on that is the first thing that came to my mind is if we do that, are we then, again, this is optics, are we going to be kind of looking like we're standoffish to the public? That we're not, I understand the need for the security.
Yeah.
But people now are used to just walking.
I know, and that's part of a problem because right now they can walk in if somebody's not there right away. Somebody's back asking a question or in the restroom. People can wander aimlessly in the building, and that's not good for anybody.
Nope.
So we are concerned about that. We also understand that even if we put in a system like that, there's going to be times where we're not gonna be buzzing people in during the elections because it's a constant flow of people, or during tax time where there's a constant flow of people coming in. So there are gonna be times when we won't have that, but those will be times where we'll have to have, somebody at the desk will be greeting multiple people one right after another when they come in. So those are things that we'll work through. Unfortunately, that's the direction that a lot of buildings and even private buildings are going to. Some of them have, intercom systems. It won't be long, they'll be using AI for that kind of stuff. Some of them have a phone where you call in, or you log in, like you go to Emmy Roth, you log in and it shoots some email upstairs, or somehow they know I'm there when I go there and they buzz me in. So we're starting to see more and more of that in the newer buildings.
Yeah, we have that at our corporate headquarters. There's a welcome desk and nobody sits there. It's actually a person in my building separate that buzzes them in.
Yeah, we had that at Nelson too when I was out there. You could walk into the main office, or the main reception area, but that was it. Everything else was closed off.
You're right, though. It's a public building and people are used to coming in there. But if you look at some of our other buildings, they don't have that same opportunity already.
Well, I'm done being a Debbie Downer. So.
No, I mean, those are all good points, because we don't want to go into this half-baked and say, oh, why didn't we think of that?
Yeah, I have a thought on the entrance, the optics on that too, but in the interest of time, I'll share that offline.
So what we were looking at is we wanted to at least have Sarah come here. And if you guys are okay with the concept, what we would do is we would, well, I don't know if we really have it noticed to do a motion. I think we're looking more for direction. And if it's the conversation that you want to entertain, what we'd like to do is have Sarah come to the reorg next week, and it wouldn't take that long, because as she mentioned, she's going to be gone the following week, and then the week after that is St. Nemai, and they would at least like a decision, because if this doesn't work out, they're going to be in a scramble mode, and we're trying to avoid that. I think it's a good situation. I know it's changed. Some people in City Hall are a little uneasy about it. We're going to try to address those concerns as we work through this. We also understand that at some point we might move people around, and Sarah has, said she'll be flexible, and we're going to have language in the agreement that allows us to do that. We're going to be moving some things downstairs and changing some of our storage arrangements to try to get some of the items for the clerk into City Hall, so she doesn't have to run back and forth every time she needs to, look at something. So it'll be a work in progress, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal. It's just change. Change is different. The chamber has been very gracious as far as the transition. I know it's a little bit of a shocker when we first talked, hey, this might happen. But it's kind of all part of the bigger picture with what the Schmetz want to do downtown. We have an obligation to try to, support not only the chamber but the historical society, and the way we can support the chamber is by providing them some space.
I think of it as temporary unless it really works out, because nobody wants to, I'm not like the mother-in-law in the back of the house. So I wanted to be a good asset to both. And I think, I really think though, having Amanda there at the front welcoming people is going to be such a nice benefit for everybody. That doesn't mean this is her gift. And if you have to have anybody in front, you would want her. So Clove and I could even, well, not the office you proposed, but we could share a space. But we just do a lot.
Down the line. I mean, at this point, we have space there. We don't anticipate, unfortunately, being in a position to add more staff at City Hall. As much as we'd like to add staff everywhere, the way the spending limits work, we're just not going to be in a position to do that. So I think we're gonna be fine for 2 years space-wise. And if we're not, we'll have that conversation and we'll give them, plenty of time to figure out something else. But I don't anticipate any issues. We do have a lease with the bank. It's a 5-year, I think, it rolled over beginning of the last year, was it? Do you remember? You weren't involved with that. So I think they still have 4 years left. They have not given any indication that they would go anywhere. If they did, that opens up all sorts of possibilities for us as well.
I would say we just continue the conversation.
Yeah,
Keep it
I'd say
going.
bring it to
Yeah.
council.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's what we'll do, is we'll bring it to council. We'll get the document in the packet, but the city attorney's gonna also wanna look at it because he'll have some recommendations, but we can at least keep the conversation going while you're gone and try to get to a decision point.
Is this what I gave you tonight helpful to put in the packet for city council?
Sure.
Okay, all right. And then if you can share it with the city attorney, because he
Yeah.
hasn't seen the markups. I wanted to see if there's any strong feelings you had and then adjust it, so it'd be ready for city council.
And he'll mark up the markups, right? Isn't that what attorneys do?
I have no idea.
So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and then we'll see you at council next week.
Thank you. All right, the next item is approval of the minutes for March 25th. And I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Brett, second by Greg. Any amendments, notes, questions?
I wasn't here, but I did read them.
All right. Hearing no amendments or questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Next item is discussion and possible action regarding agreement for services of the city attorney, and that is number 7 in the packet.
So, City Attorney Matthew brought this after. It is on. Sorry, I was like, I think I hit the button. After you all's suggestion, so it's a 3-year contract from 2026 to 2020. I read 9 in there, but I'm wondering if it should be 2028. Either way, that it's maybe he meant to be 4-year contract, because I think we've said 3 to 5, so 4 is right there in the middle. No price increase for 2026. It keeps the same rates that we currently pay, but in 2027 we'd move to the municipal rates that Stafford Rosenbaum charges other municipal clients. So it puts us in line with what their other clients are. We're expecting that's probably a 15 to 20% increase though, because they had kind of a inflationary increase this last year that we did not partake in, and then because they're holding the rates steady for 1 more year, that it would probably be a big jump when we get to 2027. So that's kind of they're extending goodwill, but also getting us in line with their other clients that use the municipal city attorney services. So with that, kind of looking for a recommendation if you all have reviewed it so that we can bring it back for approval, or any questions or whatnot that we might need to pass on to the city attorney for adjustments.
First recommendation is get everything in this year before they upcharge next year.
There's going to be a tariff on it.
One question I had is, since there are rates with a defined period, even though the contract is 3 years or 4 years, we'll want to nail that down. Will this then come back each year for approval based on the rates?
I think we have something in our policy. Didn't we update something not too long ago?
I would say,
And I think it might have to be,
I
don't
would
we have
say,
to appoint the city attorney at the reorg or something?
right, we do reappoint the city attorney at the reorg, and we reappoint the law firm as the firm of choice or whatnot. So you have kind of 2 pieces to it. I believe in his contract, like with other city contracts, there's outs to it. If we were dissatisfied with the services or the increase was not feasible, that there would still be outs to that. So it'll also, I believe, looking through the contract, that their prices would increase every January 1st, and they'd try to give notice in the fall about what those increases might be. So hopefully we can build those into the budget and accommodate those timely enough to not have to do budget amendments for any adjustments.
So we'll have to, if this is approved, we'll have to come up with a resolution for the appointment.
Yep.
We'll have to get that to Candy before Friday. And I don't know if Rick has one. If not, we can draw something up for him.
For the reorg meeting?
Yeah, the reorg meeting's next week, so we have to get the resolution.
I think
in
there's
the
one from
packet.
last year that we can,
Is there?
yep,
Okay.
because I think it happened in June after I started.
Yep.
So we'll use it. We'll find that.
Okay, any other questions?
I can't recall if they had kind of like a schedule based on what they estimated their annual increase was. I can't remember if they did that in contracts past.
It seems to me that there was something in the contract in the past that said they could only raise it. There was a maximum or something, I thought.
I think if I recall from prior conversation, Attorney Manthey mentioned that they usually follow the CPI index for whatever their increases might be. But I don't believe there's any language currently in the contract that limits them to that. If that's something that we're interested in adding to kind of put a ceiling to it, I think that would be an option.
I think you're right. I think that's what he did say now that you mentioned that.
I'd kind of like to see that, and not that I don't trust them, but you know, it's better to have it. If it's not written down, it doesn't exist. So.
Yeah, if it was somebody coming to the city, we'd be asking for it, or,
Right.
yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
it'll go down.
Real possibility.
So
Oh
are we,
yeah, just something so then it'll give you a better opportunity to forecast. So, well, maybe not.
Lisa.
Maybe not with CPI. I don't really know.
Well, it gives somebody the better idea to forecast. I think usually we go by either the, I can't remember if he mentioned it was the September one, but that's what I've often seen in other contracts is that it's typically the September year over year, just because that way you've got it closer to when those budget times are being set.
any other questions? Otherwise, are we looking for a motion to,
We could probably bring it back at the next meeting if they adjust the language and then kick it straight into council.
yeah, is that gonna be enough time to get it in for the reorg meeting? Or are those separate?
Separate.
Yeah, so this contract doesn't go into effect until January 1st of '26, so we've
Perfect.
got some time to
Okay.
work through any.
So the
thing we need to
resolution
do.
is separate, and that's what
Yep.
we wanna do, and then we do, okay,
Yep.
yeah. That sounds good then.
I will communicate that.
All right, next item is the city investment portfolio review.
So this was a bit of a challenge, but I hope I tried to explain what our current policy is, where our investments are at. I don't want to reread the whole thing, but I kind of made some Cliff Notes versions to kind of highlight. So between our current investment policy, which was passed in 2023, and state statutes, it allows the city to invest in roughly 7 types of investment vehicles, including certificates of deposit, bonds or securities of local governments or districts, bonds or securities of the federal government, the local government investment pool, or LGIP, the Wisconsin Investment Trust, or WISC, and then certain securities that mature in 7 years or less and then reach purchase agreements. So the majority of our investments are held in WISC, the Wisconsin Securities Series Cooperative is what that's called. And so you can see the balances in the memo there. There's roughly $23 million that's invested as of April 2nd. The rates of return for WISC are comparable to what the LGIP and 90-day Treasury bill rates are. So they're roughly in the 5%, a little bit under right now range. Whereas the certificates of deposit that I looked at from One Community Bank as the date that I wrote this memo are significantly lower. And so past finance directors have kind of chosen their mix of investments. I think when Dave was here, he kind of wanted to consolidate everything instead of it being in a little bit in the local investment pool, a little bit in WISC, and a little bit here. He consolidated also, it was all within WISC. WISC does have within their investment portfolios some cash and marketable securities things, as well as other investments. And so that way we have access to our funds when we need to. It's got ease of withdrawing to the city's checking account, so we can cover those negative cash balances kind of as they occur, and make sure that we're making sure our balance sheet matches our investments. The next kind of chart below, after the rates of return, shows what our current balance sheet items are for our investments. And so these are the balance sheet items are shown as of December 31st of 2024. And so the biggest change just from that to our current rate, because you can see it's 27 million versus the 23 million, is that we did do our annual debt service payment for principal and interest already. So that ate up about 3.9 million of our investments. We make those payments once a year in April. So those already have come out and changed. One thing that Dave advised me on before he left is the Fidelity investments that's listed on there in the balance sheet items. That is not a legal investment for the city to have, because it invests in stocks that don't meet the state statute requirements. And so he did have former director John Neal got him so that he and Lisa were custodians of the account, but we have not closed it. So that's something that myself and the next finance director will need to kind of tackle to get that account closed out, move it over to one of our other investment vehicles. So that. Then looking at our investment policy, it talks about the various reports that are due. They say that we need to have quarterly reports on the portfolio and then monthly reports on our cash and investments. The cash and investment balances are currently something that you all receive in the treasury reports that we produce each month. But if we'll kind of add it into our schedule of finance committee meetings, that quarterly we kind of give the snapshot of what the WISC investments look like, so we can kind of see what our rate of return has been and what the balances are. And then also the policy dictates that annually there's a report due in August from the investment advisor. To my knowledge, the city's not currently actually working with an investment advisor. Dave was kind of managing the investments himself. I think we have the opportunity, if we really wanted to reach out to Ellers to do some advising on that, or depending on what the next finance director would like to do with it, keep on the current path that we've been on, where all of our investments are kind of more consolidated. So with that, any questions, comments?
Brett, I know you had asked for that. Any questions that you have?
Nope, I was just glad to see tie-in with what we have on the books with policy and how that ties in with state statute. So thanks for adding those references in there. I mean, I remember that Fidelity investment was a giant fiasco for them to try and even get access into that. That was months to get at that.
Yep.
And then when changing up how he was doing that, I think he was certainly taking advantage of some significantly better rates of return on things, and that's where we landed. But that's kind of like evened out a little bit more now. So,
with respect to that Fidelity investment, you had noted that it's a task for yourself or the next finance director to handle getting, essentially extracting us from that.
Yep.
Is there, because it doesn't meet with state statutes, is there a time urgency for that?
To be honest, it's been there for quite a long time already, and we just need to get rid of it as soon as we are able to. I think it was just something Dave was not able to tackle in his time. We've got other kind of pressing matters, and we should get rid of it. We're not earning a lot of return on it, but as you can see, the balances year over year in the balance sheet. But it is something that we shouldn't be investing in, and so we do need to move that into one of the other fund vehicles.
So I think we can, put it on as a future agenda item so it doesn't get forgotten, if that's what you want to do. I don't know if there's any action other than that to be taken tonight.
No action. Like I said, we'll have it kind of quarterly as an item that will kind of give a snapshot of what the investments are as per the policy. That's what we should be doing. And then I don't know why the August date was picked out as when we do the annual reports, but we'll put together an annual report when that comes up and pass that information along.
I think that was as we were starting to gear into CIP and budgeting and that, it was just fit in with that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and I'm all for putting that on the agenda so that we can kind of give you the blessing to move that out.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Thank you for that. Okay, and the last item on the agenda for tonight is the resolution to amend the 2025 operating budget to reduce $600,000 in expenses and fund balance usage.
So this one just came up the other day. We were trying to do some preliminary work for this year's net new construction. We received some preliminary numbers from our assessors, and I asked Nicole Marie if she could do an exercise, and upon doing that, she made a discovery.
Yep. So the expenditure restraint reports due May 1st, and so a part of the net new construction, the number ties into your next year's expenditure restraints, but we also needed to work on it to file the report for this year. And I discovered an error in Dave's calculation. We just referenced the wrong cell. And so if you recall from the budget, we had put in $600,000 as an ERP placeholder for expenses. And then also we're using $600,000 from fund balance. So that total amount from fund balance used for the 2025 budget was $800,257. So that $600,000 plug figure was a result of how we kind of go through the calculation. And that's the second page in the document. It was Dave's work papers on it. And because we used the wrong one, it had put the that end result right above the red writing where I kind of made a comment on it that turns into a positive number, because expenditure restraint program is kind of like a game. We try to fit within the constraints of it and make sure our expenditures are at the highest level they can be at so that we stay within the program. And then in is it in green? In green, it's using the correct figure over there without that 600,000 is what we should have used. And if we include that $600,000 in there, it turns that bottom number into a negative number, in which case we are not meeting the expenditure restraint program. If we were to not pass this budget amendment and leave things as they were, we would lose about $230,000 in our expenditure restraint incentive payment for the 2026 budget. So it is highly advised that we take this into consideration and pass it before the May 1st deadline, so that way we can file our report correctly with our amended budget numbers.
Yeah, so upon discovery, Nicole Marie came to me and said, well, what should we do? And we kind of brainstormed, and we decided that we would call Ellers, which is what Nicole Marie did. And I think it was their recommendation to go ahead and make the adjustment now.
Yep, so Dave Ferris recommended you can either file your adopted budget, which is the numbers I was working off of, or your amended budget. So if we get this budget amendment in there for the 2025 budget, we will file those numbers accordingly.
It's really the right thing to do, is to make the correction.
Yep, and the auditors will be good with that.
I would think so.
Yep.
Yeah, I think as Dave tried to explain, the expenditure restraint kind of funny expenses is that they're kind of just a placeholder on paper. They're not expenses we're really going to have. We're not fund balance we're really going to use. It's just a placeholder. And so the numbers kind of dictated that we should have made that, but in the revised calculation, we didn't need that. So we're making a budget amendment to remove it from the budget.
Any questions on that?
Oh, so I think we're looking for approval so we can update the worksheet, right?
Yep, looking for a recommendation to approve to council so that we can take it to, we won't take it to the reorg meeting, but we'll take it to the April 22nd meeting, so that it will fall in line with being before our May 1st deadline. I didn't see any sense in trying to muddle the reorg meeting with this.
Okay, well, I'll open the floor to a motion. Greg, thumbs up.
Greg makes the motion.
So Greg makes the motion.
I'll second.
Brett seconds. Any further questions? All right, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that carries, and that takes us through our current agenda, and then the future agenda is the same one that's been there forever. Any other additions for future agenda items?
Yep, we do have two items that'll probably come up at the April 22nd meeting that will be time sensitive. One is an amendment for the streets department and moving around some capital improvement budget monies between a couple projects, so that they just got some bids in and need to kind of, some have been under budgeted, others came in over budget, so we're just moving around some funds for that. And then my brain just went poof and I forgot what the second one was. Oh, the portfolio, and then the sick leave balance that we had brought up last meeting, or 2 meetings ago, that we'll have that one also. That one needs to get passed by the end of May, and so we'll bring that probably time sensitive to the next one, just so we get that one taken care of before our deadlines are upon us.
And then did we want to add the attorney just as a future budget item, as a placeholder, not necessarily having to immediately act on it? Okay.
We can do that.
Anything else for the good of the cause? We have a motion to adjourn by Greg. Second? Second by Ozzy. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.